The interrogation room was bare, save for a table, 2 chairs, and a single, blinding light bulb that hummed with a quiet menace. On one side sat Warden Hobbes, a man whose reputation for breaking even the most hardened criminals was legendary across the country. On the other sat Arthur Sterling, a gentleman thief accused of stealing the nation's most precious jewels, a crime so audacious it was deemed impossible. For 3 agonizing weeks, Hobbes had used every method he knew: sleep deprivation, psychological games, relentless questioning, but Arthur hadn't said a single intelligible word. He wasn't defiant. He wasn't scared. He simply wasn't there. His eyes were open, his posture perfect, but his consciousness was somewhere else entirely. Hobbes leaned in close, his voice a low, menacing growl meant to bypass reason and strike at the primal brain. "Where did you hide them, Arthur? I will find the weakness. Everyone has a key." Arthur slowly raised his head, and for the first time in 3 weeks, he spoke, his voice unnervingly calm and clear. "You can't find a key, Warden, when you're not even in the right building." Arthur Sterling was about to prove that the most secure prison in the world isn't made of stone or steel, but of memory, imagination, and impenetrable architecture of the mind. Blackgate Prison was a fortress of psychological warfare. Warden Hobbes believed that every man was a puzzle box of fears, secrets, and desires, each with a unique combination. His method was to find that combination through pressure and observation, then pry the box open. He had never, ever failed. Arthur Sterling, however, was a different kind of puzzle. He was a master of misdirection, a man who had built his career on being 10 steps ahead of everyone who pursued him. Accused of stealing the priceless St. Edward's crown from a locked, guarded Citoviat vault, he was captured, but the jewels were never found. The government wanted them back, and they had given Hobbes carte blanche, a blank check of authority to get the information by any means necessary. But Arthur had prepared for this very moment. For years, he hadn't just been planning the heist. He had been building his ultimate defense. He was a practitioner of a rare and ancient mnemonic technique known as the method of loci, or as he called it, a memory palace. It was a mental construct, an imaginary building in his mind of vast and intricate design, where he could store vast amounts of information in perfect, organized detail. His memory palace wasn't just a storage facility. It was a fortress. It was his real prison, the one he chose. The moment he was captured, he had calmly and deliberately retreated into it, locking the great, imaginary doors behind him. While his physical body sat placidly in the interrogation chair at Blackgate, his conscious mind was walking the grand, silent, sunlit halls of his own creation. The stolen crown wasn't buried in a field or hidden in a safe. It was hidden in his mind, its location stored in a complex, allegorical vault within the west wing of his palace. Warden Hobbes, a man of brute psychological force, was trying to break down the door of a physical prison cell, entirely unaware that he was fighting a ghost in an invisible castle. The interrogation continued, becoming a silent, deadly chess match. Hobbes brought in Arthur's estranged brother, hoping to provoke an emotional response, a crack in the facade. Arthur's body remained perfectly still, his expression placid. Inside his mind, he was in the east wing of his palace, calmly observing a vast painting of 2 warring brothers from ancient mythology. The emotion was contained, catalogued, and filed away as an interesting artifact. Hobbes, frustrated, tried sensory overload, blasting loud, discordant noises and flashing strobing lights for 48 hours straight, a technique that had broken spies. Inside his mind, Arthur simply retreated to his palace's soundproofed library, settling into a comfortable leather chair by a silent, crackling fire. The chaos of the real world was a distant, irrelevant storm beyond the leaded glass windows. The warden was becoming a laughingstock in the press. The Unbreakable Hobbes was being defeated by a man's profound and unnerving silence. He grew desperate and reckless. He brought in a disgraced psychologist who specialized in hypnotism and memory regression, a man willing to cross ethical lines. "If we can't break into his mind," Hobbes, "we'll trick him into opening the door for us from the inside." Under deep hypnosis, they guided Arthur back through his own past, searching for a chink in his mental armor. They led him back to his childhood, to a raw, painful memory of a lost toy, a moment of pure, untainted vulnerability from before the palace was ever built. Arthur's body began to tremble. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Hobbes leaned in, a triumphant, predatory gleam in his eye. "Where is it, Arthur? Tell me about the toy. Tell me about the secret place you hide things." But even airy in the deepest vaults of his own past, Arthur had prepared. His memory palace had a final, desperate fail-safe. The moment they touched upon a core, foundational memory, the entire structure initiated a catastrophic lockdown. Inside his mind, great imaginary stone walls slammed down, corridors reconfigured into impossible, shifting mazes. The memory of the lost toy was sealed away in a deep, dark sub-basement. Arthur's mind, which had been opening like a flower, snapped shut like a steel trap. He fell into a deep, protective, catatonic state. He was now lost inside his own fortress, a prisoner of his own perfect defense mechanism. Hobbes was furious. He had broken Arthur's connection to the real world, but he was no closer to the jewels. Arthur's body was a prize. He had won, but the mind was lost. For a month, Arthur remained catatonic, his body wasting away in the infirmary, kept alive by machines. He was trapped, and the key was lost. But the warden had made a critical mistake in his arrogance. He assumed Arthur was the only architect of his mind. The memory palace was built on real, powerful memories, the strongest of which, the very cornerstone of the entire structure, was the love for his wife, Clara, who believed him to be innocent. Before his capture, he had given her a key, not a physical key, but a phrase, a trigger word woven into a line of poetry. "If you ever need to find me," he had told her, "remember the winter roses, Clara." Using her public influence and tireless legal challenges, fought for the right to see her catatonic husband. After a month of brutal legal battles that caught the nation's attention, she was finally granted a single 5-minute visit. She was led into the sterile infirmary, where Arthur lay like a marble statue, his eyes open but seeing nothing. She leaned in close, past the watchful, cynical eyes of Warden Hobbes. She whispered the trigger phrase into his ear, her voice full of a love that could cross any distance. "My love, I brought you the winter roses." Inside the silent lockdown, gray stone, fortress of Arthur's mind, a single, impossible thing happened. In the center of the grand stone courtyard, where only a dead fountain stood, a single, beautiful, impossibly vibrant winter rose began to bloom. It was a memory, an emotion that was not part of the original architecture. It was a new key, a new door, a new color in a monochrome world. The lockdown began to fail. The great stone walls receded. The corridors returned to their proper, elegant places. His consciousness, which had been trapped in the deepest dungeon of his own design, was drawn back to the courtyard, to the impossible, beautiful flower. He was no longer just the architect, the prisoner of his own creation. He was also the visitor. He realized he didn't have to stay a prisoner. He could choose to simply walk out the front door. On the infirmary bed at Blackgate Prison, Arthur Sterling's eyes fluttered open, and, for the first time in a month, they focused. He looked at his wife, and a slow, tired, but genuinely happy smile spread across his face. Then he turned his head and looked at the utterly shocked and defeated face of Warden Hobbes. "The game is over, Warden," Arthur said, his voice weak but clear as a bell. He had won. He had proven that his mind was a place no one could break into without an invitation. But his victory came at a cost. The catatonia had taken a severe toll on his body. He was free in his mind, but physically, he was a ghost of his former self. He never revealed the location of the jewels. They became a part of the legend, a treasure lost to time, forever secure in a vault no one could ever find. Arthur had built a perfect prison, and in doing so had taught his captors a powerful, humbling lesson. You cannot cage a man who holds the keys to his own infinitely complex mind. The story of Arthur Sterling is a testament to the incredible power of human intellect, and the idea that true freedom is not a place, but a state of mind. If this incredible story of mental fortitude captivated you, please show your support by hitting that like button. Subscribe and ring the notification bell for more true stories of impossible feats and unbreakable wills. Now, we have a question for you. What is the one memory you would use as the cornerstone to build your own memory palace? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching.